If you've ever struggled to get a great cover for your book, one that attracts clicks and helps your book make sales, then this video is going to be a huge unlock for you. I think it'll be a game changer. I'm going to talk about how to get a great cover, how to know it's a great cover, and I'm going to spill some of the secret sauce that I've been using in my own publishing business for the past 10 years, and also that I teach to my coaching students to get really great results. If you don't know who I am, my name is Dorian. I've made way over $1 million in profits from KDP, and if you'd like to see my actual KDP account, just go to my old videos. I do show it there. So let's get into this. Your book cover will either make or break your book. In my opinion, it does all of the heavy lifting. It conveys the concept of your book. It either attracts people to click and then buy your book, or it becomes invisible in the crowd. So obviously, we want your cover to stand out and attract people instead of blending in and becoming essentially a commodity and invisible. Your book content, what's inside the book, really comes later. And it gets reflected in your reviews and also shown up front in your A+ if you have A+. But really, that's kind of a second step because most people absolutely judge a book by its cover. That's what it's there for, so that you can judge it, whether or not you want to pick it up or click on it. And so if your cover is not doing the job it needs to do, then basically your book is just not going to sell. So let's have a quick look at what I consider to be the Superbowl of covers. It's the first page, or rather the top 100 page on Amazon. And as you look through here, every single one of these covers is amazing. It works, it conveys the title, it conveys the concept, it does it in a way that has its own personality. Each one of these stands out, and it's really a fascinating study just to look at this page and to see how it changes from month to month or sometimes even from week to week. When I have a new book, or if I want to redesign the cover for an old book, there's always this question of, cost compared to quality. That used to be a much more direct correlation. Nowadays, you can get a cover for relatively cheap if you use AI along with a human to arrive at a really great cover. But there's still some steps in between that take time and have some costs. So even with AI, I really don't consider covers to be free. So here's an example of a cover that I'm pretty sure was made with AI. I know nothing at all about this book or how the cover was made, but to me it's pretty self-evident. The background is AI, whereas I believe that the title panel, the typography, was done by a human. And that's essentially how I do things and how I teach my students to do things if they're going to use AI. That being said, my favorite is actually to work with a human because humans bring something that AI just doesn't have yet. And I would bet the farm that almost all these books are human designed instead of AI, except for the one that I just showed. So regardless of whether you use AI or AI with a human, or if you hire a designer, whether directly on Fiverr or Upwork or someone that you know, or if you use 99 Designs or one of those contest websites, whatever you do, you're still going to come to the point where you have a book cover idea that may look finished and that you might even like a whole lot, but you still don't know if it's a good cover or not. And this is where we get into personal judgment and taste and testing, which is something that I do a lot of and that I teach. And we also get into what is the language that's used in the niche, or what are the signals that are common in that niche. And so every time I have a new cover that I want to consider, I always take a screenshot of, first of all, this top 100. I also look at various niches. So whatever niche that we're in, I'm going to show you an example of the bread niche. So I always take a screenshot and I put that screenshot here onto a Canva board or whatever I'm using at the time. And then I take my cover and I just see, does it fit? Does it look like it can live on both of these pages? So I have an old cover from, 7 years ago, this one right here. And this actually failed a test that I ran, but I think it's a pretty good example. So I like putting the cover into the top 100 and just kind of look at it and see, well, does it does it look like it could fit? You know, is it a high enough quality? Is the typography interesting enough? Can I read the title? Can I get a good sense of what it is? By the way, like I said, this is not really a very good cover. It's kind of dark and whatever. And then I bring it over to the niche that I'm considering, and I just kind of look at it, you know. Does it seem like it could be a winner? Does it seem like it stands out? Does it look professional? Does it make me want to click? You know, does it just look like a Me Too book? You know, is it a copycat? So that's the first layer of consideration and judgment that I go through. And it's so useful to do. And if you're not already doing this, I would highly recommend that you do it. Start doing it right away. You'll start noticing things that you didn't notice before. You know, you might notice, well, this thing kind of has the same tonality as these other books around it. So, you know, maybe it's just going to disappear. Maybe people won't even see it. They'll kind of scan, but they'll just scan right over that cover, even if I can get it to the top of the page, you know, through advertising or whatever. And that's really the goal for most publishers, is to spend a lot of money and pump your book up to the top of the page so that hopefully people notice it and click on it and make a sale. And that's hard to do if your cover is not attractive. If your cover stands out, if it's attractive, if it says the right things, if it has the right signals, then, you know, you can get people to click and your advertising money is well spent. But if your cover is just not doing the work that it needs to do, then essentially you're wasting your ad money, and then you'll just lose that money. Hopefully you'll still break even, but sometimes you won't. Now, that's happened to me quite a lot, which is why I focus on this so much now, because I really don't like pain. I don't like losing money. And so I've developed a process like this where I can try to prejudge my books as much as possible, not just with my own judgment, but as you'll see a little bit later on, with other people's judgment. And that actually brings me to the point. I actually do a lot of testing for my covers. I test my titles and my covers and a bunch of other stuff too. I've been doing that for a long time, and I do so much of it that I developed my own platform, and I encourage my students to do it as well. Well, practically all my students do the testing as well. And after testing literally thousands of covers between my own covers and my students' covers, I've noticed some patterns that happen again and again for covers that are successful. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And I think this is the part that's going to be a game changer for you. So let's go back to the Superbowl here, the top 100. Now, what are the repeating patterns here? So first of all, you can read the title. It's easy to read the title, and it's easy to see what the book is about. That's really the first and foremost thing. This is a very clear example here and here and here, and pretty much every single one of these covers, it's easy to read the title in thumbnail size. There are a couple of these that are a little more difficult, but they have other things going on that make up for the fact that it's hard to read, right? So this one here, for example, kind of hard to read the title. The contrast is not very good, but this has another thing going on. It's highly branded. People know what it is, and as soon as they see the image and the style, they know what it is, and they'll click on it. As independent authors and publishers, we do not have that luxury usually, so we need to be very clear and make sure that the title can be read very easily at this size. So one of the things that makes that possible is contrast. So, you know, white against medium blue, yellow against black. You see a lot of white against a darker color or black against a lighter color. That's very important. When you have this kind of situation where the colors are too close in terms of their intensity, it just makes it harder to read. So it's a pretty basic thing. That's basic design. And that brings me to the second pattern that I see over and over again, and that is good professional design. There's something that a designer knows how to do that most of us just don't have the skills, or, you know, we haven't developed our eyes to notice. So good designers learn about kerning, which is the spacing between individual letters. They also learn about leading or leading, whatever it is. It's the line spacing, like how much vertical space is there between the words. and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's pretty specialized knowledge, and there are a lot of other things going on too, such as balance and contrast and layering. You probably heard about layering. All these things are options. They're not necessary. You can have a flat cover like this one. There's no layering. This one here, it's flat. There's no layering. You can have covers that have only really one color, like this one here. This one is mostly one color with a spot color. You know, wherever there's a rule, there is someone breaking the rule. But even when a designer breaks a rule, the totality of the design still feels good, and that is still because of design principles. So in other words, good design is like one of the primary patterns that I see over and over again. So the title, the design, the font is important too, but that's really a design choice, so I'm not going to go into that. I'll just make a comment that if we were to test this cover here and have different fonts on the cover but have everything else exactly the same, there probably would be one font that really works best and that people prefer over the others, and that would actually attract a lot more clicks. Another thing that I see over and over again is a very clear idea of the concept of the book. So if you're able to understand what the book is about within half a second, which is, you know, essentially the time that it takes us to process these things, then your cover is doing a great job. And that has to do with the title, the subtitle, any kind of badges, and of course the cover image, if there is one. Another thing that I notice is that covers that are very kind of even, where everything has the same kind of loudness or weight or size or that kind of thing, they tend to be pretty bland. So covers that have large and small, or loud and quiet, or, you know, intense and subdued, those tend to be more interesting to look at, and therefore they will attract more attention and more clicks. And then the final thing is, does the cover stand out? Well, I gotta tell you, this number one book here has a color green that is fluorescent and really stands out. So does that stand out? Yeah, absolutely. The Housemaid does too. It's a very unique looking cover. This cover here, even though it looks bland, it stands out in context. And of course, context is a huge thing that we need to consider. So those are the basics. Those are the things that I see repeated over and over again, generally across all covers in all niches. But I want to go into niche-specific things, and these are things that I call signals. These are really interesting because they change from niche to niche. Every niche has their own signal. And I'll give you a couple of examples here. This is the Mediterranean diet niche, and in this particular niche, like most other cookbook niches, numbers became really important for a little while, and it looks like they're dropping off now. But we see things like, you know, 30, 60, 56. Oh, that's a new one. 56 day. Yeah, that's kind of strange. The number 2000 kept popping up, and oh, here it is, 2000, right? So people put these strange numbers on here. This is a very popular book, I think, or maybe there's another one that looks just like it. But the number 2000, which is completely meaningless, it does not refer to anything. 2000 days, it's meaningless, right? But that's one of these signals in this niche that worked for a lot of books. Other types of signals in this niche, the year, so 2026 now, nutritionist approved, or the word simple, or even full color. As you can see here, this is a badge here, full color, another badge here, full color. So that's because cookbooks for the longest time, independent cookbooks on Amazon, were black and white because color printing was too expensive. Now things have pretty much crossed over to full color. So that becomes a very important badge or symbol to put on the cover in this niche. Now another niche might be this niche right here, ADHD. I think, let's see. In this niche, numbers are important as well. So here we go, 365, so one for every day. I've seen 30 days on here. I've seen whatever. So there's different numbers. Here's another one right here. Sometimes these numbers represent a USP, like, hey, my book is everything you get in that other book, but I also have, 50 plus exercises or tools or blah, blah, blah. Here's another signal, therapist approved. So how do you know whether these are important to put on your cover or not? Well, we're going to get into that in a second. For the meantime, I'm just showing you some of the signals that are unique to each niche. So in this niche, what are some signals? Well, numbers, of course, are really big here. For some reason, Einstein's face is a really important signal in this niche. I cannot tell you how many books I've seen that were successful only because they had Einstein on the cover. So if I were to do a book in this niche, I would consider whether or not to put Einstein on the cover and, of course, some kind of number, whatever it is. And it depends on the sub-niche within this niche as well. So there's just a couple of signals there. Travel. So the year tends to be super important in travel. Flags are very helpful. I think you start getting the idea here. So every time we go to a new niche, there will be other signals, different signals than the previous niche. And then, of course, in this niche, since it's a cooking niche, I expect that eventually we're going to start seeing the word 2000 on some covers here. Yeah, we've got 30 minutes, full color. That's Mediterranean. Oh, looks like bread. Oh, here we go. 2000. Someone's doing 2000 in bread. Okay, so I think you get the idea. Every niche has its own signals. So then that brings us to the next question. How do we know what signals to put on our cover? How do we know that some kind of indicator of social proof is important, such as #1 bestseller on blah, 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 or read by 1 million people, or therapist approved, or teacher approved, or those kinds of things? How do you know? Well, it has to do with a niche, and it has to do with your competition. And the only way that I know to definitively understand and, figure out and get proof that the signals on your cover are working, and that measures the click-through rate on your cover, there's only 2 ways to do it. One is to launch your book on Amazon and, spend the $1,000 or whatever it is to get it fully launched, get some reviews, and start advertising it. Then you'll know what your click-through rate is and your conversion rate and all that kind of stuff is. But then by then, you've spent 3 months and at least $1,000 invested in the book. Or you can test up front and you gain insights why people picked your competitor's cover instead of yours, and then you make adjustments on your cover. Then you can improve your cover massively and get to the point where people will choose your cover over your competitors. That's the secret sauce, and that's how I and my students achieve high click-through rates and high conversion rates, and how we avoid losers. It's the loser books and the loser covers that end up taking a lot of time and money, and why waste that money when there's a way to get out of it? There is a process to weed those loser books out. So if you apply that to your own cover design process, I promise you, I absolutely assure you that your covers will turn out better. You will get higher click-through rates. You'll get better conversions, and it should have a profound impact on your KDP business. My students and I have noticed differences of up to 10 or even 20 times the number of clicks from the original covers we started with to the final cover we ended up with after incorporating the insights that we got from the testing and the Amazon simulation that we do. And if you think about how much more sales you get from 10 times the number of clicks, 10 times the number of people that are interested, it can be very profound. I've mentioned that I have my own platform that I've been using for years now and that my students use. That's actually not available to the public right now, but I do have a wait list, and I will be opening it up to the first 100 people pretty soon. So if you want to be on that wait list, check the description below for a link. And if you're interested in coaching or other training options, then check the link below. And otherwise, if you have any questions, you can ask them right here on YouTube. And I look at every comment and I answer everything. And I look forward to answering your questions. So happy 2026, and I'll catch you later.